Okay, so I'm going to show you how to create a depth of field by simulating real aperture on camera. Okay, so this was a scene from the Sky Dome, if you recall. Okay, if I switch off this, if I turn on this, okay, you guys have this scene before, yes? Okay, so you can actually use this scene to practice. Okay, I'm going to switch off the car and turn on the spheres. Okay, I have 3 spheres created. Okay, one of them is brush metal, one of them is car paint, and one of them is chrome. Okay, so 3 different materials. Okay, all placed with a distance apart. Alright, okay, so here I have my camera set up. Okay, I've locked my camera, and also in addition, okay, I've set my focal length to 100, okay, which is an ideal focal length for close-up shots. Okay, so what I want to bring over here, if you scroll down, okay, if I just go to here, camera attribute editor, okay, which is over here, and if I scroll down, I will see this called Arnold. Okay, so open up Arnold and you enable DOF, which is the depth of field. So how do we go about doing this? Okay, first you need to determine which is the object you want to focus and which is the object that you want to have it sharpest in your scene. Okay, so here's how we do. First of all, you need to go to display, heads up display, and make sure that object details is turned on. Okay, turn on object details. Once object detail is turned on, you can see this thing over here. So what you want to do is to select the object. When you select object, it will give you this information. What is the distance from the camera? Okay, so what I want to do is to select the one in the middle, which is this car paint sphere, and it will give me the distance, which is 21. Okay, round off 21. So 21 is the distance which I want to input. Okay, so I go back to my camera attribute editor. Over here, when I switch on, okay, I'll have a few things that I need to input. Okay, focus distance 21. Aperture size. What is the aperture size? Okay, I sent to you on WhatsApp a field guide to the aperture. Okay, the depth of field. Actually, for the Maya aperture, it is not really the same as the one that you will have in the real camera. Okay, so let me turn this to 0. Okay, turn this to 0. Okay, the aperture blades is actually to simulate how the highlight will look like. Okay, so usually I like to take it up to 9 because the aperture blades that you have in a camera lens is usually from 7 to 9. Okay, so actually 9 is the better quality one, so I just use 9. Alright, so aperture size, when it's 0, it doesn't have any depth of field. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, if I turn my render settings, this one just to 2 maybe. Okay, I'll just make this very quick render. Go to here and then render. Okay, this was the previous one. Okay, so you can see that with 0, okay, there's no difference. Okay, everything is all sharp. Okay, but when I start to crank this up, okay, I start off with 0.28. Okay, so I start with 0.28. Okay, the focal distance is 21. Okay, as indicated here. Okay, so let me render again. You can start to see the depth of field. Okay, I'm rendering this in low quality so that you can see faster. Okay, so let me just stop this. So this is 0.028. Okay. Now, if I crank this up to higher level, I'll even have a more shallow depth of field. Okay, 0.4. Okay, so let me render again. You can see that then again, my car paint shader in the middle is still sharp in focus and the rest is blur. Okay, of course the quality is not that great, so what I can do, okay, is this. Okay, all this already set up. I like the blur effect, I like the bokeh effect. Okay, the technical term is called bokeh. Okay, so I'll go to my render settings. Okay, so what I need to do is to crank up the camera AA. Okay, so from 2 I'll crank it up to 6. Okay, and then close. Then I'm rendering this half, so it's much faster. So I render again. Okay, the trick is in your camera AA. Okay, in this case it works okay when I crank it up like 3 times from 2 to 6. Okay, if you have other things like you have glass, you have metal and this and that all combined together, your mic quality might want to crank up. Okay, it depends on your scene. Okay, that's why sometimes you need to double check. Okay, how do you double check? There's a good way to double check before you do the final render. Okay, and then I will also show you how to do that. Okay, actually for this is considered pretty fast because this scene only consists of 3 spheres. Very simple setup. 1 table and 3 spheres. That's why it's quite fast. Okay, but if you have like 50, 100 objects in your scene, yeah, prepare to wait. Okay, so this one is quite decent. Of course that I can still see some artifacts which you will need to crank up the render. So let me just stop this. So how to test this? Okay, let me crank this up to 8. Okay, so how do I test this? Before I go to shading, what I will do is to go to occlusion. Okay, render your occlusion. Your occlusion will also show the depth of field. Okay, and your occlusion usually will be much faster to render because it doesn't have any shader information. So the way to test this is in your occlusion. Okay, if your occlusion, the quality of the blurriness, the background and the foreground, if it looks correct to you, then you use that setting before you switch to shader. Okay, so occlusion is the way to test it out. Okay, so if you're happy with this setting, you can see the setting is all reflected here. Okay, from your render settings, then you're able to switch to full mode. Okay, so I will stop the sharing here, and then you can continue to work on it. All right.